I guess the first thing to say is that our neutrality is not and should never be confused with the idea of Ireland being indifferent or uninterested in world affairs, or indeed indifferent to the suffering of oppressed peoples globally. A constant snide attack to those of us on the left, on this side of the House, has often been how obsessed we are with far-flung conflicts and the plight of the oppressed people in other parts of the world. We're often criticised and slagged off for that. And that is why we stood with Black Lives Matter, why we protested against Donald Trump, why we marched against the war in Iraq, why we highlight and oppose the brutal thugs and dictators wherever they came from, be it Saudi Arabia, China, Burma, Egypt. It's why we marched and defended refugees coming here, why we railed against the treatment of thousands who drowned and are drowning in the Mediterranean or freeze as we speak on the Poland-Belarusian border. I welcome the newfound conscience of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael here in relation to the Ukrainian refugees, but I can't help measure, and we've been trying to do this over the last few weeks, the spectacular hypocrisy involved in the attitude to those from Afghanistan, Yemen or Syria who seem less worthy of human empathy than we are now told is officially sanctioned and being paid for. And that is not to detract at all from the suffering of the Ukrainian people. We are not neutral when it comes to human solidarity and opposing warmongers and dictators of any colour or creed. We are always, as has been said, on the side of the oppressed. And in the words of James Connolly and the generation of socialists and republicans whose struggle gave birth to this state, we serve neither king nor Kaiser. Today, we serve neither Putin nor NATO nor any other imperial bloc. Neutrality is not the absence of feeling of action. It is a defiant pledge of independence from all imperial blocs and military alliances in a world which is increasingly and dangerously dividing into competing blocs and breeding conditions for more and more wars, more deaths and more immense suffering and displacement of millions of people across the globe. Whatever about our concern at the double standards when it comes to the treatment of refugees, it's nothing compared to the revulsion that we feel when we hear commentators and TDs salivating at the thoughts of Ireland growing up and joining NATO or some NATO-aligned military setup. There's a version of mature debate there without showing our willingness to send off. We need a version of mature debate without showing our willingness to send off young men and women to die in foreign fields. But I will say, in fairness to your party minister and others who've been consistent, that you've never hidden your desire to ditch neutrality, and neither have Fianna Fáil when they've inventively ignored the policy of neutrality whenever the opportunity arose. For them, neutrality was more honoured in the breach than the observance. That inventiveness has meant genuflecting to neutrality while also doing whatever it wanted in many cases. The Constitution says, Article 28 of the Constitution says, war shall not be declared and the state shall not participate in any war save with the assent of Dáil Éireann. Yet despite that, the inventiveness of this establishment's attitude to neutrality has meant the following: acceding to whatever whims the US empire has had. If it wanted to move 3 million troops through Shannon in pursuit of criminal wars, then go ahead. It has meant joining PESCO, meant Ireland joining NATO, the NATO-led ISAF mission in Afghanistan in 2001. It meant in 2017 Irish troops being deployed on NATO-led missions in Europe. It meant in 1999 Ireland joined NATO's Partnership for Peace. It meant in 2003 Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael voting against a bill to enshrine neutrality into the Constitution. And it meant cooperating in rendition flights, turning a blind eye to the horrors of Western-backed regimes like the Saudis and promising to bump up military expenditure and coordination with the European Union and NATO armaments and hardware. Our traditional policy of neutrality has always been, for Fine Gael and for Fianna Fáil, like a lot of other traditions, it's useful to genuflect to from time to time, but can always be rendered redundant when it's convenient. And we've clearly found now that the horrors of the Russian invasion have given you the right to ditch that genuflecting to neutrality and profess that alliance has to be a full-blown support for NATO or another European Union alliance. The only problem with this, of course, is that you intend to march us to war and future alliances without giving the people of this country a say in that via a referendum. And we want to say here today that that is absolutely imperative, that we have to have a mature debate. You say we have to have a mature debate, so let's have that debate and let's have a referendum. So I appeal, as has been done already by Deputy Murphy, to the Green Party to live by their conscience, by their principles, if they still have them, and to refuse to vote against this bill.